it seems that getting together a guard infantry horde just got significantly more expensive. Hello and welcome back to Auspex Tactics for a little bit of slightly unfortunate news. It's not exactly the biggest shake-up to Games Workshop's releases, but just one small and very useful kit that has been unceremoniously dropped without fanfare. Until very recently, Games Workshop sold a nice little filler kit of lasgun Cadians, and now that kit is just missing from their web store. Now generally collecting Imperial Guard is a relatively expensive army to buy in Warhammer 40k, mainly because you just need quite a lot of miniatures. The majority of their tanks and infantry aren't quite as elite as, say, things like Space Marines, which means that most of the time you're going to need an awful lot of them. If you really did want to go fully down the foot guard route, you could quite easily be running a 200 plus model army, barely breaking a sweat, and that would still leave well over 900 points for tanks, characters and artillery support. If you bought this with the standard Cadian kit, the one that doesn't have the upgrade sprue, that would have cost you around about £450 or around $700. It's not cheap, and even then you've only filled out half your army. That's why having this little kit as fillers was so handy. You basically got these 5 monopose guardsmen in a kit for either £6 or $10, and it was a really cheap way of bulking out a guard army and just filling in those ranks and ranks of lasgunners. You could still easily make an adequate number of sergeants from a few standard kits or the command squad box, and this just had you paying for guardsmen at either £1.20 or $2 per guardsman, as opposed to the $2.25 or $3.50 from the old Cadian kit. I'm certainly not saying that the sculpts were anything special, they're pretty much bog standard Cadians, very simple miniatures that basically come as one single piece of plastic, but honestly they really don't need to be anything fancy. When you've got squads and squads of ranked up lasgunners on the board, any individual model out of the rank and file doesn't really need to be all that standout. You still just get a pretty awesome look of the whole army just by the sheer regimented volume of your lasgun infantry on the board. The vast majority of opponents aren't going to pick up every single one of your rank and file and examine them, so it's best just to have any fancy miniatures be things like characters or vehicles. It really is a shame to lose this kit, as it just meant that you could fill out all those ranks for a lot cheaper than otherwise, and it really sucks to have that option taken away. Of course, this new Cadian kit is basically a repackage of the old one, plus an extra bunch of new and fun heads, all the special weapon options and a power sword, but it does come with a significant markup of £29 or $45, so rather than paying as little as £1.20 or $2 for a guardsman, you're now up to $2.90 or $4.50. I can only guess that some analysts at Games Workshop must have done some maths, thought about how many sales of the new Cadian kit that they might have used to these old easy build Cadians, and just said, yes, we're going to remove that as an option for you now. And likely the few extra very expensive Cadian kits that we sell is likely to be far higher than the volume of the very cheap monopose ones. To be honest, if that was the decision behind it, I think it still would have been nice to at least keep the kit on the roster, even if they had to jack the price up a bit. So at least there was the option between these newer and slightly fancier ones, or just some nice cheap bog standard guys to fill out the lines. Basically the main takeaway from the news that these are gone is that if you were wanting to acquire a large amount of guard infantry anytime in the near future, it might be worth just checking at local game stores or other places that stock Games Workshop stuff and seeing if they have any more of these easy build Cadians available. I'm sure plenty of these places still will do for a good while, and it might well be an option to take advantage of until they're gone. Otherwise, if you do want to put together an Astra Militarum army for cheap, the Cadian Jungle Fighters are the cheapest option if you just want some bog standard lasgunners, at £20 or $35 for the sprue. That's £2 or $3.50 per guardsman, so a fair bit better than the new Cadians, though of course their sculpts are a fair bit older. I think the Cadian line does tend to divide opinions a bit on the old models. Some people really like them. I've never really felt that they aged as well as the Cadians did. In any case, they are an option if you want an army of space Rambos. I think it's also pretty funny that the old metal Armageddon Steel Legion models are also some of the cheapest now. Certainly a far cry from the day where metal miniatures were the premium option and cost far more than plastic. It's now only £20.50 or $35 for these guys, basically the same as the Cadians, far cheaper than the standard Cadian kit. They certainly have a cool aesthetic, though obviously being metal models is quite a disadvantage really. You've got some very monopose ones, including those ones with a grenade launcher and missile launcher, so you're not just going to get squads and squads of lasguns if that's what you want. To be honest though, if you're just going through Games Workshop themselves, If you want to acquire a lot of Cadians, then probably the Genestealer Cult Brood Brother kit is still the best value one. You don't get the special weapons like the plasma guns or melter guns that you get in the new Cadian kit, but you still get that basic 10-man Cadian sprue, and included instead of those special weapons, you get a whole heavy weapons team. Not too bad at all when they're typically sold at the price of around £8 or $15 per model, and this just gets included alongside the Cadian kit. Add to that you also get the Genestealer Cult Upgrade sprue with a bunch of the random icons and heads. A couple of them might be useful for character models and things, though you could always resell or trade them. I noticed they seem to be going on eBay at the moment for around about £4 or £5 each, so that could be another quite big saving on the kit if you're looking to economise. All of that for £25 in the UK, so cheaper than the new Cadian kit, or weirdly enough $45 in the USA, so the same as the new Cadian kit over there. In any case, I'd certainly be aware that this box exists. I think for a lot of players it might actually be preferable to the new Cadian kit, particularly if you've already got one for a bunch of extra heads. Having cheaper Cadians removed also does increase the value of third-party miniatures. There are a ton out there from companies like Anvil Industries, Victoria Miniatures, and plenty more. It's possibly one of the areas where Games Workshop's IP is a bit weaker. There's not really too much they can do about people making sci-fi, humans and space miniature lines, and in particular quite a lot of people seem to have stepped up to the plate, ever since they went and discontinued quite a lot of their metal guard regiments. Also perhaps a lesser used option, but I certainly personally recommend things like eBay for building up a collection of second-hand Cadians. Obviously it will depend on what country you're in and how big the second-hand market is, but the Imperial Guard have been around for a really long time. You'll often get big mixed collections coming up for sale, and again much for the same reason as usually people don't tend to notice a few easy build miniatures mixed in with the rest. A little bit of loss of detail here and there due to some thick paint isn't the worst thing in the world. For ranked up guardsmen I feel like the overall mass effect of them is much more impressive. I literally resprayed mine without stripping them, resold any accompanying characters or vehicles that I didn't want to keep, and was able to build up a sizable guard horde relatively cheaply and easily. Totally recommend that if you want to try and get into Imperial Guard and not fork out quite as much money. So overall, still not exactly the best news for Imperial Guard collectors. I'll be interested to hear your thoughts though. Is this a kit that you're going to miss, or is it one that's not really all that big a deal? If you've enjoyed the video, then feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics, where I'll certainly keep the regular 40k videos coming, with new ones coming out pretty much every day. Finally, if you'd like to help support the channel, I would just like to mention my Element Games affiliate link, which you can find down in the video description. If you are looking at economising when buying some models, Element is a cheap discount retailer based within the UK. They give 10 to 20% off Games Workshop's miniatures, and if you do buy anything through them after clicking the link, a small amount goes to help support Auspex Tactics without costing you any more whatsoever. Can just be a way to help out the channel if you were thinking about buying something anyway. Similarly, for people in the USA and Canada, I also do have an Amazon affiliate link too. That works the same. Click the link, buy literally anything from them, and Auspex Tactics receives a little bit, costing you no extra at all. A big thank you to you guys who are using those, it is very nice of you. In any case, an enormous thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.